Hi everybody, welcome back. As you can tell, there's a little bit different today. Things are a little bit different today. This is my wife, Morgan. Yes, she does exist, and no, I was not lying about how pretty she is.
Oh, I got overlearned that stuff like that.
No, I don't. It's my channel. Anyway, so this is my wife, Morgan. I'm going to let her introduce herself if she would like to. Would you like to?
Sure. Hi, I'm Morgan, obviously, because we already established that. I'm Ben's wife. We already established that too. I like to read books, and sometimes Ben and I read stuff together, which
Not a lot, but sometimes.
Sometimes. I read books, just like Ben reads books.
What type of books do you like to read?
Jane Austen's my absolute favorite author, and so anything she wrote, obviously, which is only a few books, and then I love Jane Austen fan fiction. I read a lot of romance, I read a lot of mystery, I read a lot of classics. Those are probably the top 3 things that I read, I would guess. But I read anything and everything. I like all books.
So if you've been watching my channel, as you can tell, there's not a lot of overlap.
Oh.
But we do occasionally will read the same book. Like she said, we don't often read it at the same time. Typically, one of us will read it, and then like a few months later, the other one will read it. But for this video, we are going to be reviewing As You Wish by Cary Elwes. This book covers the making of the movie The Princess Bride, and we actually listened to this on audiobook. And I don't know about you, but I for one would highly recommend listening to it on audiobook. Granted, neither of us have actually read the physical book, but the audiobook was really cool. It was actually narrated by Cary Elwes himself.
Along with, they had like, it was not only narrated by Cary Elwes, but then also like Rob Reiner,
Mandy Patinkin, Billy Crystal,
lots of the people who were in
it. Goldman, the guy who wrote the book The Princess Bride and wrote the screenplay for the movie.
That was actually really cool. Well, so all of them, so there were like sections where Cary always would be talking about the book, and then he'd be like, and so-and-so said, and then they would actually say it. So-and-so would actually say it. That was kind of cool. It was mostly narrated by him, but also everybody else, which was cool. Yeah,
it was very cool. And Cary Elwes, in case you've never watched him in an interview or seen him in person, he comes off as very personable. Listening to the book felt like you had him in your living room, and he was just explaining the movie, which was really cool.
That was awesome.
And granted, it's easy to come off that way when you're in a recording studio, but we also saw him at New York Comic Con this past October, and he was exactly the same way. So
that's where we bought the book.
Yes, which we still have not read, but
we technically, I feel like you can say you read a book even if you listen to it on audiobook. Like, that's still, you could be like, I read the book because you ingested the content.
Maybe I'm just too technical. But, so we read it. Like I said, it follows the making of the movie, and it basically it details kind of the struggle for it to actually be made into a movie. Bill Goldman wrote the screenplay like 10 years before the movie was actually filmed, and several studios flirted with the idea, and it was eventually, because it took so long for it to be made, it was eventually labeled as like a screenplay that would never happen. It was kind of blacklisted by a lot of the studios until Rob Reiner came along, which was very interesting. The story is basically from Cary Elwes' perspective because he's the one writing the book, so it goes through him being cast, you know, his interview for the role, him being cast, up through the entire movie being made, and he shares, you know, it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. It's also a lot of cool stories about the other characters, and also I realized halfway through the book that Robin Wright, who plays Princess Buttercup, who I actually do not like as a character, but she plays on House of Cards. Didn't realize that.
You don't like Princess Buttercup as a character?
Nope.
How come?
Because she doesn't do anything. First of all, she's a daughter of a farmer, but she's stuck up and thinks she's better than a farm boy, so he has to go sailing the 7 seas for his fortune.
Maybe he was a wealthy farmer.
Then supposedly he dies, so she's going to marry some complete douchebag just because. She doesn't have any good reason for it.
It explains her reasoning. Well, it doesn't really.
No, it doesn't.
That's probably a discussion for a different time.
But she's stuck up and wants the life of luxury that she's acted like she had.
She was still in love with Wesley.
Well, would you like me to go marry a princess to prove how much I'm in love with you?
while I'm sitting here at home? No. But if you think I'm dead, then yes, you have every right to go marry someone else. Okay. If you think that I'm dead, why wouldn't you? That's off topic. So, I've never seen House of Cards, so I don't know that information. But I mean, I heard it on the Cary Elwes told us. So.
Yeah, that's how I figured it out, in case you hadn't noticed. He actually came out and told us.
Yeah.
To sum it up, I would give this book a solid, probably like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I always feel weird judging nonfiction because ultimately it feels like I'm judging someone's life experiences, and it's like, how do you put a star rating on that? But in terms of how much I enjoyed listening to the story, I would give it a 4.5 stars.
I mean, I would probably give it 5 out of 5, I think. Mostly because exactly, like, it's someone's story. Well, everything is someone's story, but, like, they're telling their viewpoint of life, and I loved hearing all the different actors and actresses. That would have been the only thing that I think would have taken away, but he added that, so that was positive. And then, I don't know. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5.
Okay, so if you average it out, it's 4 3/4 stars for this book. What was your favorite part?
I liked a lot of the parts. I'm a really big nerd. I went to school for fashion merchandising. And so I find costuming, I'm super interested in costuming. It's my favorite thing ever. I would love to work at a costume department for a movie set, company, whatever, production. So my favorite part was they talked specifically, it wasn't even that long, but there was a very specific section about costumes. Cary always was talking about how he went into the costume department, and the same lady who worked on the costumes for Lawrence of Arabia was there helping, and he talked about his costumes, and he talked about her, and like she came up a couple of other times in the book, and that was honestly probably my favorite part. I was so fascinated by that, but again, and then I also loved the entire book to me was almost like, I mean, it was a tribute, obviously, but a huge portion of it to me felt like a tribute to Andre the Giant. Like he just talked so fondly about Andre and about the experiences. And so for me, I loved hearing about that because I've always loved his character in the movie.
For those of y'all who are not diehard fans, or maybe you've just forgotten, Andre the Giant plays Fezzik, who's the giant.
The giant.
In the book, everyone he talked about very fondly, and you could tell that he very much enjoyed his experience, and he genuinely liked working with everyone that he worked with, and that's very refreshing. I think especially what tends to dominate the headlines in Hollywood is all the backstabbing and bickering and just like petty Kim Kardashian Twitter feuds. And so it's nice to know that there's people in Hollywood who actually can work with people and not be intimidated to the point that they feel they have to prove something by being a complete jerk. I think my actual favorite part would be he talked a lot about the sword fight. And in the screenplay, Bill Goldman put the sword fight between Inigo Montoya and Wesley by simply putting the greatest sword fight in the history of sword fights. Or it was something basically, and that's like all it was, but it's just that and then exclamation points behind it. So Rob Reiner, who was the director and producer, decided he wanted to put a lot of emphasis on that scene because of how much emphasis that Bill Goldman put on the scene. So they actually brought in like Olympic fencers and professional stuntmen to train Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin. And so a big part of the book was Cary Elwes talking about his training. Yeah. For like several months, him and Mandy would work like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, just learning the basics of fencing and memorizing their moves. And then even when they started filming, their stunt coordinators, I cannot remember their names, but they worked on movies like Star Wars and such. One of them was the guy playing Vader in all the duels, the lightsaber duels, which I thought was really cool. But so these guys would just be hanging around, and as soon as either Mandy or Cary would stop, would get done with a scene, they would basically jump on them and make them practice just absolutely around the clock. And that really makes me appreciate the scene more, knowing that, first of all the sword work is actually done by the actors. The only stuntmen involved are during like the gymnastic, scenes where they're doing backflips and all that stuff. But all this actual sword work is done completely by Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin, yes. And I really, like I said, that it just makes me appreciate the scene knowing how much work they put into it.
Yeah. And also, Cary Elwes does really good impersonations of people. And the entire time, so, I mean, they obviously had, like, Rob Reiner and all the people, like Robin Wright, everybody was on there, and they talked. But in the times when they didn't talk, Cary Elwes did impersonations of everybody. And he did really good. It was actually, there was this one where he was doing an impersonation of Rob Reiner, and I was like, oh, Rob Reiner's talking again. And then he said something, and I was like, oh no, that's Cary Elwes doing an impersonation of Rob Reiner. Like, it was really good. So he did those all throughout the book, and that was really fun. It made me think of it because he did a Gavna, like he did impersonations of the stuntmen who were obviously English, and it was funny.
Yeah, and a lot of the people, the impersonations that he were doing were people that were talking in the book.
Yeah.
So you would go from hearing Cary Elwes impersonation to hearing the actual person.
So you knew he did a good job.
Yeah, it was very spot on.
Yeah, he was really good.
So we very much enjoyed this. We listened to it on a trip there and back, and were able to get it knocked out in basically a couple of days. But it was very enjoyable. It was very easy to listen to. There was really nothing boring in the book.
No.
I would basically recommend this to anybody. I would recommend you've at least seen the movie, but I'm pretty sure that's like 99.9% of the population of the earth right now.
I feel like you could get enjoyment out of it whoever you are, because again, he's an entertainer. Cary Elwes is very obviously an entertainer, especially, like I said, his writing style. I actually did read a little bit of the physical copy. It's upside down. I read a little bit of the physical copy before we started the audiobook, so his writing style is obviously good, but then the fact that he's narrating it, and it's just, like, he has a really great manner, I guess, about him, so it's entertaining. Very personable. It's entertaining to anybody, but you are going to get huge amounts of entertainment from it if you've seen the movie, because it's about the making of the movie, and so...
And if you haven't seen the movie, if you're one of those like 2 people on the face of the earth, go see it and then get the book.
Stop the video, go see the movie.
Or you can finish the video because we're almost done.
You know, but
then you should go watch the
movie because it's amazing. It's perfect.
Yeah. So that's basically it. I would highly recommend it. I would like to thank my beautiful wife for being eye candy and brain candy for this movie.
Eye candy and brain candy.
Yes.
Win.
So if y'all would like to comment, or subscribe, feel free to do that. I will try and have her back for periodic reviews. Like I said, we don't end up covering very much of the same material, but we do occasionally, so I will try and bring her in on that because, like I said, she's a lot easier to look at than my ugly mug. But thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye.